churches, right? It involves the church in Corinth, and they're poor, but not as poor as the church in Macedonia, and they're experiencing, as the scripture says, deep poverty. You know, they're very poor, but not as poor as the church in Jerusalem. Think Haiti, right? That's what I've been saying. You know, that these needs, hardcore needs, desperate needs, they're going to be with us for a while. You know, for years we're going to be looking at the churches in Haiti and saying, wow, there's a need there. What are we going to do? That's where Jerusalem was at. And so we look at this story in 2 Corinthians chapters 8 and 9. You got to go home today and just read the whole thing. You know, that's what we've been looking at over the last few weeks. What's going on here is Paul, St. Paul, the Apostle Paul, he's writing this letter to the church in Corinth, and he's got one goal in mind. Won't you be generous? Won't you be generous givers toward the need of the church in Jerusalem? That's his one goal. He's concerned about the need in Jerusalem. So today we take the story a little bit further. Today what he does is he's telling the church in Corinth, a year ago you said you were going to collect money, you're going to give money, get this offering ready to go to Jerusalem. It's been a year. Hardcore need here. I'm now going to send you three fellows. I'm going to send you Titus and then two fellows who are unnamed in the story. They're going to come and they're going to collect the offering. So that's the context. And out of that, we're going to go into this. We're going to look at this story time and time again today. And what we're looking for, 5 ways I can be a generous giver like Jesus. Here's number 1. Write this down. Give like a gardener. Put that down. Give like a gardener. About 15 years ago, Lydia and I hadn't been married that long. We got our first little house, our first little yard, and we decided we were going to become gardeners. We only had one child, and we had time on our hands. We could garden. Now we have 5 kids, and we're raising kids. We're not raising the garden, but then we could raise the garden. And so we went and we bought some packets of seeds. And what you need to know about me is I've always been the kind of person, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing, right? So we're going to plant a garden, and we're going to plant a big garden. And so I bought carrot seeds, among other seeds, and I didn't know what I was doing, and so I just started planting the seeds. And the instructions, they say something like space the seeds out, and if a few seeds are good, then the whole packet's better. So I'm just pouring the seeds, watering, covering, really fertile soil, because these seeds started coming up, and they were little sprouts, little green sprouts. If you're a gardener, you know what I'm talking about. Just covered the ground, right? And so the instructions said something like, you need to pick some of the little seedlings out. I guess the carrots need their own little room to grow, but that's crazy. Why would I pick anything? It's not ready, Few carrots are good. Lots of carrots are even better. So I didn't pick a single little seedling. I'm just going to let them all grow. And so they grow, and if you're a gardener, you know what happened. They grew, and fertile soil, and it was bunny rabbit heaven, and then next thing I knew, we had a block of carrots. You know what I mean? Just like they were growing into one another, and they were misshapen, and they were all connected, and we picked them in big blocks and had to separate them, and we just had carrots coming out the ears. Lydia cooked with them. We ate as many as we could. We put them in the garage for the winter, and she made soup this week, and I think she used 15-year-old carrots. We had that many carrots. And the crazy principle about gardening is the crazy principle about generous giving. And that is, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. You're real sparing, real careful. Don't want to waste too many seeds. You're going to get a few plants, but you want to see a crazy garden. Bunny rabbit heaven, as I said. You sow with generosity. Let's jump into the story for 2 Corinthians. Paul's writing to the church in Corinth. He starts out with this, but I want this to be a willing gift. Hey, church in Corinth, I want this to be a willing gift, not one given under pressure. There's no arm twisting here. It's not. God's not a demanding God. Remember, He's a giver. He's not a taker. He wants you to give because you feel guilty. And then he goes on. Paul says, remember this. A farmer who plants only a few seeds will get a small crop, but the one who plants generously will get a generous crop. And then a couple verses later, in verse 8, he says to the church in Corinth, and God will generously provide all you need. Then you will always have everything you need and plenty left over for what? To share with others. And then one more verse. Verse 10. Paul reminds them that God owns it all. He is the seed supplier, if you will. We don't even have seeds without God. He says, for God is the one who gives seed to the farmer and then bread to eat. In the same way, He, God, will give you many opportunities to do good, and He will produce a great harvest of generosity in you. We as a church give like gardeners. We as a church are generous. We call you to be generous. We as a church together, we're generous. In 2008, we gave away $126,000 to start churches. $126,000. We're not a wealthy church. You know that. No. We don't splurge, and we sometimes, God, where's the next, how are we gonna make the bills? Where's the money coming from, God? We know it's coming from you. We're not a wealthy church, and yet we gave away $126,000 to show you a couple of pictures. In 2008, we started two churches. Vita Church, they met here for a while, and now they're out on Padre Boulevard. And this is a Spanish-speaking church for people who don't usually go to church. That's our motto, right? That's their motto. It's just like us. This is a Spanish-speaking church, and we gave generously like gardeners, expecting a great harvest. There's another picture. This is a Lifeway Church. This is their first billboard. We do billboards sometimes. This is a church that we gave generously towards in 2008 to see this church planted in North Texas. We gave generously, expecting God to show up. We practice this principle as a church. Generous, like a gardener. We want to see a great harvest. And what I want you to hear, because you're my friends, because I love you, what I want you to hear is that I am not saying, like you might have heard on TV, you plant a faith seed, you just send it in,